shoplifting is currently an epidemic. It's at an all-time high. Never have we seen figures like this in this country. According to the latest stats released today by the British Retail Consortium, around 55,000 shoplifting incidents are reported in this country every 24 hours. Every day, 55,000. That's costing retailers a staggering £2.2 billion over the last year alone.
Well, joining us now is Cullan Mais, who was once known as one of Britain's most prolific shoplifters for stealing up to £2,000 worth of goods a day before he went on to turn his life around. And alongside Paul Gerard, we're talking to the Director of Campaigns and Public Affairs at Co-op. Good to speak to both of you this morning. Everybody is horrified and concerned about this, aren't they? Shopkeepers, users of the shop, people who work in retail. It is frightening, the numbers. You've been on the other side. Why did you do it and what stopped you?
So mine was all drug-related. So if I never took drugs, I never would have shoplifted.
So you were doing it to feed your...
addiction.
Horrible addiction, yeah.
Yeah, that was the reason why I done it, like a lot of people in this country. The reason I stopped taking drugs leads to only one way, really, and that's death, and I almost passed away myself, and that was my time to change, really, and eventually stop committing crimes.
You were nicking stuff on an industrial scale, as today's shoplifters do as well, just sweeping shelves clean. I wanted to know this. What did you do with all this stuff?
Sell it straight away.
Who to? Who buys it?
Well, there's loads of... There's different... Everyone loves a bargain. You know, people are online now, purchasing on these Facebook markets and these Snapchat pages.
So were you putting it online?
I wasn't personally, but this has become massive.
Now.
Yeah.
Is it true that you'd go to you take a whole swag load of booze and go to a corner shop and say, "Do you want some cheap booze?"
If I was, say, like I travelled up the north of England and my car was full by the time I got home, I would stop at Birmingham and just go to a corner shop that I think would, you know, take it, yeah. And yeah, otherwise I would take it back to my area where I had buyers.
I see, OK.
Did it ever feel like a risk to you that you were going to get caught? Did it ever feel, you know, like, oh, gosh, I'm pushing my luck here? I know you're in the grip of drug abuse, but, you know, was there anything preventing you in a way?
Unfortunately, no. Obviously, I knew I was doing a wrong thing, but I tried to justify everything I'd done. And, you know, to me, I know it's not now, but to me, that was a victimless crime. I'm not burgling houses, I'm not drug dealing or hurting people physically.
They can afford it.
I'm stealing from a big corporate business. That was my outlet.
Right.
What about security? Would you steer clear of a store where you saw a uniformed security guard?
Yeah.
You would?
I don't want to roll around with security on the floor and get another charge, and that's what would have happened, you know.
And did anyone any staff member ever try and stop you? Did you get into tussles? Did you have to sort of wrestle yourself free and run away?
I never got into tussles. I have had verbal arguments, but I come to grips with realising it's best just to say, yeah, you've got me, love. Here's the stuff, and walk on. That was my way.
And they let you go?
And they wouldn't stop me.
And nobody ever called the police on you?
Not there and then. Of course, you know, I have been to jail for shoplifting, and I'd be reported after. But they wouldn't come just for the one shoplift. They would wait until they had a substantial amount of shoplifting offences to try and put me away for a certain amount of time.
And just before we go to our gentleman from the Co-op, he's got some very interesting points to make about how they're dealing with it, and they're doing quite well, actually. You say that basically you were doing it to feed your drug habit when you've been clean now for 4 years. Congratulations on that. But you were saying earlier to us that you sense today there's a real sense of entitlement going on, that the people who are, you know, committing industrial-scale shoplifting do it because they think they're entitled to.
Well, the police have said, you know, we're not going to tackle anything underneath £200. You're giving a green light to people who, number one, are doing it anyway, but in a cost-of-living crisis, families who are struggling, they're going to think, do you know what? If I'm not going to get arrested, you know,
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Look, Paul Gerard, as you mentioned, Director of Campaigns and Public Affairs at Co-op, you are, the perception can be victimless crime, but you and your staff are the victims of this, aren't they? What can you do to stop it?
Morning, Kate. I mean, it's really familiar what I've heard Callum say, but it's also great to see that Callum's turned his life around. I think the key thing for us to protect our colleagues and to protect our shops is that we invest, and we've invested over £250 million over the last 5 years on security measures, on security guarding. But it's also how we work with the police. And through our partnerships with the police right across the country, we think we're beginning to make a difference. And the figures from the British Retail Consortium this morning are sobering, and they reflect much of what we see. What I would say is that in the co-op, we've seen crime not rise in the last 12 months, but stay broadly flat. And we've seen violence against our colleagues begin to reduce. Now, there's still too much violence, there's still too much crime, but I think the efforts of the police over the last 18 months and the position that the new government have taken, I think gives me, for the first time in probably 8 or 9 years, a little cause for optimism that perhaps we're going to get on top of this and keep my colleagues safe.
What do you think about the decision by many police forces not to prosecute, not to investigate, if the value of the goods is less than £200? I mean, our veteran shoplifter here, now reformed, of course, says that that's just a green light.
I couldn't agree more. I spent 10 years in law enforcement, in Her Majesty's Customs and Excise. I understand criminality very well. I think a number of things that the government have recently announced, the standalone offence, which we've campaigned for. We've seen investment into the police to tackle organised crime, but also the removal of that £200 limit, because that then begins to make clear to both the criminality, but also the police what is serious. And I think the police do deserve credit for the last 15 months, where before that they were turning up just 2 times out of 10 when our security guards had the offender under their control. 2 times out of 10 they turned up. For the last 15 months, they've been turning up 67% of the time. So we are beginning to see a police response that's welcome. It needs to continue, and businesses like the Co-op, and we already do it, but we need to carry on doing it, investing to keep colleagues and shops safe.
And do you have security in all of your stores? Do you have security in all of your stores? We've doubled the amount of money that we spend on security in the last year. We have security where we know there's a problem, and we also employ undercover security teams who operate, as the title suggests, undercover, who then will make citizens' arrests and call the police for support. So security is a really important part of it. But in all honesty, if you've got 3 masked men with machetes coming into a store to take out the entire alcohol section, a security guard is going to be of little use in those contexts.
Paul, it's fascinating, and it's encouraging that you see flickers of hope and optimism. Callum, your perspective is invaluable. Thank you very much indeed, and congratulations on turning your life around.